Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're back here with more action from the ESL Pro Tour Europe Weekly Cup. It's Monday, June 8th, and we have for you a PvP. It's our second match of the day, so still in the earlier rounds. We got some young whippersnappers trying to prove themselves in the field of battle. In the bottom right, we have the red Protoss player, famed legend Liquid Mana. When I think of Mana, I think of a very funny stream he once did many years ago. Actually, yeah, quite a few years ago, where he was taking donations and quite literally wrapped his entire face in scotch tape. Or was it duct tape? I don't know. It was one of those, it was like packing tape, I think, because it was clear. It was clear tape. It wasn't duct tape. But it was definitely like one of those really wide strips of tape. So I'm going to say it was packing tape, which obviously if you've ever had packing tape on your flesh, well, Mana, as you guys all know, very strong, and not just physically, but also mentally to be able to withstand that level of pain. He faces off against a Grandmaster Protoss from Europe as well. He is Mindel IVK. For the purposes of this match, I will be referring to him as Mindel or Mindy. Depends if he wins my heart, honestly. So PvP, as we all know, is one of those matchups that Protoss players talk a lot about how they find it very stressful or difficult or don't like it. And, well, on the other side of the coin, as a caster, I actually love watching and commentating these matches because they're usually quite wild. Mana has definitely elevated his range in terms of strategies that he can do. He's had some good results over the years. His fair share between championships and other things. My mind goes back to the infamous WCS Krakow, as that was awesome. That was actually really, that was a wild event. I was there. It was good times. That was the one where the makeup lady did our faces and we all looked like vampires. And then Tasteless was like, "I'm going to murder someone if you don't fix this right now." And then everybody else was like, "Thank you, Tasteless. We were all too shy to say it." We all still looked like vampires for most of the event. But it was a great tournament as far as the StarCraft is concerned. It was good times there. So Mindel with the pylon block on the natural. He's thinking, "Hey, Mana, you want to expand?" "No, I'm not going to let you." And Mana sees that pylon. He knows about this one. He's going to get a robo. He's dumped some chronos into the warp gate, and he's going for double sentry after 2 adepts. This could actually be pretty difficult because he doesn't really have anything that can just straight up firepower. The Stalker has 6 range. The Adept only has 4. And sentries aren't really DPS units, so it's going to be pretty difficult for him to push this away. If he doesn't get some units out quickly, already having to build that shield battery is not very fun. Mindel on the other side hasn't had to start anything. He gets the shield battery in his mineral line, which is generally a lot easier, just because it makes it possible to defend later attacks, whether it ends up being an Oracle or any other type of drop play. Basically anything that isn't Dark Templar. An Immortal does get started. Mana is waiting for a pylon to finish before he can actually boot up, but he's going to try and use force fields. Pinches off the Stalkers, but it looks like they're going to be able to get away. He's trying to keep his weak one back. Good control for both players here. Kills an Adept, and nothing else will die. But look at this pylon, still doing its job throughout all of that. And now he gets his own Nexus going back home. So these Stalkers might want to try to poke since there's no sentry energy. But instead he says, you know, I'm going to bring these Stalkers home. My robo is going to end up being later. Did he see the robotics facility? No. So he may not be 100% aware. And that's why he still built the blind shield battery, since he says, okay, I'm going to expand earlier. It's probably worth it for me to play with my cards a little bit close to the chest. And we'll see what else he can get done. Twilight Council. So Mana did take his Nexus. He built an Immortal. A little bit of a supply block there to get this Observer out, though. So you can see quite a bit of stress here. And he's going to also get a Forge. So Mana thinking about those upgrades. I mean, typically, I haven't really been able to watch a tremendous amount of PvP lately. I've been tuning in for GSL VODs and whatnot, but we haven't really had PvP there, as Protoss has been underperforming at the highest levels in StarCraft recently. So just because of that, I can't tell you that I've watched a crazy varied amount of PvPs, but I imagine there's still some degree of that Charge Lot Immortal Archon left here. But we've got a Prism coming out from Mana. +1 attack. So it looks like he wants to try to get aggressive. However, Resonating Glaives by Mindel. Mindel opened with Stalkers. He opened with 6 Stalkers into a Immortal. And he did not, and he didn't want to get Blink. That fascinates me. So the Stalkers, it tells me, are just purely defensive. Like, he just built these for that early poke and maybe to defend. But imagine if he had been going for Blink, he'd be pretty close to having it. And that would help him tremendously with this Warp Prism. But instead, he will now have to deal with this Immortal Harass. The 2 Adepts are waiting here already. That's why the Prism is half empty, so that he can unload there. The Observer is going to come over onto this side. I don't believe there's an Observer for Mindel. No. He got the Prism. He got the Prism. He got the Immortal. The Observer for Mana can see that Prism, which is very nice for him. He's going to try to come up here. Oh, the Prism almost gets killed out in the field. That's kind of crazy. The Immortal does make it here. The Adepts never actually tried to go inside the base, but he needs to be really cautious. Oh, I love that. Focus down the shield battery. Hey, he's going to be... You pretty much have to rebuild that. And if you don't, then the opportunity is only going to grow as the game goes on. He's got that Observer watching. So the Prism is on the way out. Did he... Where is his Observer? Okay, he's going to recall at home. Mindel's Observer. Okay, that's crossing the map. So he's going for a big push. He only has 4 Adepts. And his only upgrade is Resonating Glaives. So, oh, I love this. Mana, though. He gets Adepts into the back of the natural. So now Mana has a massive income advantage. He's got a Photon Cannon. So he was already possibly thinking about like DTs or even just the Observer from his opponent while he gets his Templar Archives and the rest of his gates up. But this is kind of what I'm talking about, right? Like, how are Resonating Glaive Adepts going to change the tide here? Let's see. Doesn't have too much micro ability, which is usually a big reason why you go for that Blink. The Adepts are going to try to shade into the main base. Good pylon block by Mana, though. As the Prism wants to try and elevator the Immortals in, the Adepts, he does let them finish their shade, but now they're kind of stuck. The Prism helping to relocate some of Mana's own units. All of a sudden, the shield battery that he built at the beginning of the game ends up generating a lot more value for him, as it's going to allow him to take just a few more hits on this top side. That Immortal, the Big Daddy, is really the big threat here. But those Glaive Adepts actually putting in a little bit more work than I thought that they would, as the Archons kind of getting choked up around the buildings of Mana, and 3 more Adepts are going to make their way towards that main base mineral line with Resonating Glaives. We know it's going to be pretty easy for them to get those 2 shots, but unfortunately they do turn to hit the army, and they will get picked off. So we have 2 Archons in the natural going up for a 3rd, but I mean, he's got Immortals, he's got Archons. The only thing he's missing is the charge upgrade, right? And that's what you really want. I mean, the +1 attack helps in any sort of head-to-head even engagement, but Mana certainly did end up getting pushed behind a little bit in worker count. However, Archons pretty much mega dunk. Archons are actually fantastic against Adepts, and I really like that he's going to try and do an Archon drop. Whether or not he commits to it or he uses his recall. His recall's actually still got another 10 seconds on cooldown, so you might as well just move across and wait for that. He is going to start up his charge now. But the biggest problem is really just blocking that off, so he might try with this extra pylon he put here. He might try to put like a gate to block the ramp next time. But there's the Archons. They're ready to hit the probes. There is nothing here to defend. He hasn't invested into anything like Stalkers, really, for upgrades, so he won't be able to like try and blink in on top of this. Oh my god! Oh, the Archons sniping the probes! Mana absolutely eviscerating the probe line here of Mindel while he tries to shade up, but it was a gate just so that it would have extra health. He uses the force field as well to try and block him in. They can shade through it, but there may not be enough time to accomplish such a goal, as 16 probes been blown up, but I was going to recall the Archons back to the natural expansion. He's still got the shield batteries keeping these 2 Archons alive. The Adepts are not going to be able to break through them, and once the Immortals are gone, the Immortals of Mana are going to be able to rip everything else to pieces. However, we still have 11 probes dying in the main base, as quite a few of the Adepts have still made their way here, but those shield batteries helping to reinforce the Archons as they shade back over to the other base. Once these Adepts are gone, I have to ask myself, are we going to see that push? Yes, Mana takes game number 1. Oh, that's a hell of a start to that series. Action-packed. What more could you ask for? Some good old PvP scrappiness. And as much as I would like to make another funny comment about Resonating Glaive Adepts early on, I always appreciate players that are trying to go for unique or more interesting builds and trying to keep everything Gucci. So, not bad. Not bad at all. For the people asking in chat, yes, I moved to Las Vegas. I got fiber internet, so I actually have a good ping to Europe. It's nice and sunny. Life is good. I've been waking up early. I got up like 2 hours ago, played some Madden, set up the stuff for the stream. I went into the ESL chat and I'm like, okay, guys, what round are we on in the tournament? What round are we on in the tournament? And then someone's like, oh, yeah, well, you know, it doesn't start for another hour and a half. And I said, damn, son, I'm very excited. I'm very excited to get into this then. Usually I wake up and the tournament's almost over. So you've managed to do a lot better. We're in the lobby for game number 2. So we're just waiting for it to start now. We do have a 2-minute delay, so there's really only so much chat interaction I can do. And for that reason, I am going to do my best to be quiet between the games. So I will let you guys know when the next map is starting. All right. Loading into game 2. In the bottom left, we have the red Protoss player leading the series 1-0. From Team Liquid, he is Mana. He faces off against the orange Protoss opponent in the Northeast. You know, not one of the known pros, but certainly somebody who's really and pushing it as hard as they can. He is Mindel. And he got close. He got close-ish. It's hard. It's a difficult game, StarCraft 2. But that's why we play it. And at the highest level, my favorite way to compare it is, you know, if you've ever seen the blockbuster all-star, highest-rated movie of all time from the 1990s, Speed, starring Keanu Reeves and Jack Nicholson, I must tell you, it is certainly much like that. Both players driving at 100 miles an hour, and whichever one of them slows down below 100 for any moment, or should I say 200 kilometers an hour is probably more appropriate, since we are in the Europe edition of EPT. I will try to be European for y'all. For you. Yeah. So whichever player basically dips below 200 kilometers an hour, their vehicle just immediately explodes, killing everybody. So that's kind of like PvP. It's a race. It's high speed. It's action-packed. And there's lots of blinding lights. So let's see what the options are for both sides. Now, last game, Mono went 2 Adept into 2 Sentry. Fairly defensive-ish. I mean, I don't really think of Adepts as very defensive, but he didn't really end up using them to attack because Mindel went for 6 Stalkers in a row, which is pricey. You don't really get much scouting, but he went for the pylon block with his probe scout as well. So the plan seemed to be to try and catch Mono off guard and deal a lot of damage early. But that does not appear to be the case here. No, Mindel is instead pulling back, but Mana's going to go for 2 Stalkers himself. He's going to go multi-Stalker. Mindel starts up his Twilight Council pretty fast, so he might not be thinking of expanding, and he's actually going to put a pylon on this ramp. I guess he wants to just see what units are coming out. You should see it was the 2 Stalkers, or it's a weird tactic to keep his units distracted or locked inside of his base for whatever reason as he sends out his own Stalkers. Now, Mana does follow this up with 2 Sentries, so he's going to have access to, you know, a cheeky force field. More importantly, in PvP, a big role of the Sentry outside of force fielding, you know, it's not the old days where you would get 5 Sentries and permanently force field a ramp and again, heart of the swarm. In PvP these days, the Sentry fills that vital role for using Hallucination, which had its cost reduced to 75 energy and also does not require an upgrade. So it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy. Yeah, I know it wasn't Jack Nicholson. You guys are smart. You guys are paying attention in chat. Keira Knightley was in it too. as well as Richard Bernoulli. Blink on the way for Mindel, and he's still just cranking out stalkers. So this time around, he's saying, I'm not going to do the fake. I'm going to make it look like the last game, but instead of doing something random, I'm going to do what makes sense. And I'm not entirely sure that that's going to be able to catch Mana off guard, because he probably did expect Blink to some degree. And in PvP, you're almost always going to try and get out Immortals anyway. So really, it's a bit about managing to catch him off guard, hit him from the side. Now, Mana goes in. He sees that Twilight. He sees this gateway. No Robo. So you have to ask yourself if it's possible that you're going to get like proxy DT'd, right? There could be a Dark Shrine hidden in a corner of the map. With the number of stalkers that he's built. Nuh-uh. Sorry, my coffee's supposed to be on the way here soon. And he's building this gateway as well. The observer can see it. So he is just going to full on try to blink all in him with a crap ton of stalkers. Can Mana hold this push is going to be a big question. He's going to hallucinate an Immortal to try and bait the targeting since there's no detection for his opponent. So he's hoping that these stalkers blink in and try to shoot this Immortal, which honestly, if this works, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to crap myself because that would be insane. All right, he comes up, he gets a poke, and he blinks in. Yeah, he blinks and he shoots the hallucinated Immortal. So Amana's play works beautifully. Several stalkers get caught with the force fields off cooldown from Blink there. And I have to tell you, I don't know that this is over yet, but it certainly went as well as it possibly could have. And yeah, Mindel's on one base, and now there's two Immortals. Immortal number 3 is coming out. GG, good luck. Mana takes the series 2-0. Beautiful play by the Team Liquid Protoss.